stories, the antagonist and protagonist are antithetical to each other. They are directly opposed to each other. And they are incompatible. We've discussed other terms like animus, where one character might have animus towards another character on the same side. In those cases, the characters can be antithetical to each other even car races, and the car might slip over and explode and somebody might die, but it's not, that's not atrocious. That is not pleasant, but it's not atrocious. Now, leave a comment on the genre you mostly write in or write on, and if there are atrocious acts in your stories or not. Now, and like I said, you can skim the surface if you alert. Now let's turn to your writings. Pull out your story with a setting. We don't have a shared plug for this one. We're just going to pull it out and continue from wherever we left off. For reference, we started this in season 3.1, episode 17, and then we continued. If you check the description below, hit the more, the three dots in the more, whatever they do on YouTube now, it will list all the episodes, and it will have the original setting where we started. Feel free to screenshot the setting and start today, or if you want a written copy of the setting, then you can send to the email, right, with Mykela@gmail.com. You can either ask for, if you want just the setting, you can ask for a Word copy of it. I'll give you a Word copy instead of just a PDF. That way you would have to type it again. Of course, all works shared on the channel are copyright protected, so that's more reason to send it in, because there will be proof that your writings are yours when I read them to my viewers. Send your writings to writewithmykela@gmail.com. Pause the video, write a scene or a page or at least 500 words or whatever goal you have, and come back, and I will read what I wrote. Welcome back, writers. Let me read what I wrote. Over the next several days, the hero ran a lot and practiced magic. Her sister joined them some of the time, but not too often to have Charles, Elisa's husband, to think something unusual was up. George came at least twice, and yelled at her from the road. The police came every time. judge that Kahira sprang the divorce on him, and he just wanted to sit down and talk about things. George's lawyer told the judge how they planned to go to the cabin together, but there was an accident that made them go back home. He told how George was working 2 jobs to support Kahira, and how George recently let and encouraged Kahira to do volunteer work at a children's camp. The judge turned to Kahira and asked what her response was to that. Alfred automatically responded. He told how George was correct that they had planned to go to an idyllic cabin together, but the accident changed George in ways where Kahira felt he was pulling away from her, including sleeping on the couch every night. Alfred said that even George's eating habits were different, and how he left the house every night around midnight and returned around 5:30 in the morning. When Alfred said that, George turned and looked at Kahira. He said, "I told you that's my second job." George's lawyer put a hand on his shoulder. He said, "I'm your lawyer. You're paying me to speak." The judge indicated for Alfred to continue, so Alfred continued with the details of not asking about her volunteer time when she returned. Alfred included how upset George had been when he had purchased a dress like George had asked, but hadn't gone to the shop he recommended. The judge turned to George and said, "Why is that? I would never recommend a shop for my wife, not even if she were buying a suit for me. Women know shops way better than men." George said, "I had a company card that..." "George," said his lawyer, "I've got this." George fell silent. George's lawyer explained that the ball they were attending was fancier than they were used to going to, so that was why he recommended the shop. The lawyer added that, of course, George had not been upset. That was just Kahira's projection. George wanted her to go to the shop so she would get an appropriate dress and not be embarrassed at the ball. The judge asked who paid, and Alfred told the judge Kahira had. Kahira was wondering how Alfred got all this information because she didn't remember these questions on the questionnaire. The judge asked if there were any pictures of Kahira in the dress she chose along with the other women at the ball. The court had an exhibit that they showed on the screen. Kahira saw herself on George's arm and she saw other people. In light of the conversation, she had to say her dress was just as nice. The judge asked if Kahira had felt her dress was less or she had been embarrassed. Alfred answered no. Kahira felt like she fit in with the other women. The judge then inquired when Kahira filed for divorce and why, and Alfred answered all his questions. The judge then went through all the police reports. In the end, the judge granted the injunction, and he told George that he was not to go near Kahira. He even said, "I don't care if you both end up in the grocery store at the same time. If she is there, you can't be in that store. Now, as I understand it, she has moved away a bit, so you probably won't see her in a store, but I want to make myself clear. You cannot go near her. There must be at least 100 feet between you unless you are in court. Do you understand?" George's lawyer said George understood. The George added, "If you break the injunction, I will be inclined to move the divorce up, and it will not take the normal 6 months." George nodded, and he and his lawyer left. Alfred thanked the judge, and he walked Kahira out. Once they were at Kahira's car, Alfred asked if she could swing by his office tomorrow. He told her there was more paperwork, but Kahira felt it was more than that, so she agreed. Kahira arrived at the lawyer's office by 10 in the morning, but the receptionist showed her to the conference room, and Kahira was again asked for coffee. Soon Alfred entered, and he had a stack of papers. He shut the door and sat down. The legal secretary popped her to the side. Now, my partner's boss, Ballstar Denton, wanted me to take you to the hospital to see if you could hook the third lobe. She is still alive and clinging to life. We, of course, can't interfere, per se. Tanner put her in charges. What would I do? Why now? Why not sooner? Are the vampires watching her? Alfred had held up his hands. All good questions. Not sooner because the vampires were watching her, and if you help her, they may think she is stronger than she is. So that is a consideration. I'm told you said the counterspell or countercurse on the werewolf, so you have untapped power. Before you protest, I know that spell wiped you out, but the spell shouldn't. They discuss how to get to the woman and how the wizard community could step in to protect after Tahira healed the woman. Mostly Tahira had listened and not spoken, and Alfred never said wizard or witch aloud. I need to edit that because they did say vampire and witch in the ad part, so he didn't say witch or wizard or witch aloud in that part of the conversation. Tahira agreed to help because she felt that Ballstar Denton wanted this and hopefully she would be on his better side. She did help. Tahira was surprised when Alfred clasped glamours on them, and he stood up, and she could still see him sitting in the chair. The man standing behind the sitting Alfred didn't look like Alfred. Tahira stood up and looked at herself. That was surreal. She had heard several stories of people floating above their bodies and looking down on it as doctors did their thing to revive them, but she thought they talked about a connection to the body, and that was not something she felt. They quietly opened the door and headed out. Tahira assumed the receptionist would notice them, but the receptionist seemed frozen as I walked by. Alfred explained he didn't hurt her, and if she didn't see them leave, he would protect her as well. Alfred drove them to the hospital. Okay, writers, that's all I'm adding today. That was 2 words shy of 1,900 words. Leave a comment on George's lawyer, the Cerberus. Leave a comment on what you thought when the lawyer told Tahira that the walls were soundproof for humans. Leave a comment on the vampires just impregnating women and not raising their children in case the child did not have vampire potential. Leave a comment on the receptionist seeming to be frozen. Join me Wednesday for a book club discussion on 1984. Join me Friday for